Go ahead.
I would like to say that the patriarchy is not a group of men, a specific group of men. It's like a description or a describing word to, or for social structures that we have, ingrained into our society and ingrained into a variety of societies and cultures. So it's not just one group of people. Also, sex work. Shit. Sorry.
Who's at the
That's fine.
Who's at the top of that though? Inside
There's
of the
not
patriarchy.
a individual that's on top of.
Then what's a
patriarchy.
matriarchy?
Led by feminine values.
So then
or
there's somebody
feminine-
on top of the archy, right? That is female in a matriarchy.
So it depends on what you're using the word for. So like when we talk
He
about,
said matriarchy, not patriarchy.
I know they're like opposing words, like for different.
Yeah, but who's on
situations.
top in a matriarchy?
So in a matriarchy, a woman is on top. If we're talking about a matriarchal society, but whenever we're talking about a matriarchal society, we're usually using it in a historical context. So we're describing how a specific society functioned, like within their households and stuff like that. When we talk about the patriarchy in a modern context, we're talking about the qualities and structures that a society has within it. So I would say, to just throw in a point that kind of correlates with patriarchy, capitalism is a patriarchal structure that we have within our society
boy.
and within
Okay.
a lot of societies.
So men. So just to make sure I got the definition
partially
down.
agree.
Hold on.
Oh, sure.
No. So you
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
I was just wondering. I just want to make sure I get the definition down. So women can be in charge in a patriarchy.
I mean, a woman could be a manager at a job in a patriarchy.
That's not really my question, though. I'm
Okay.
trying. So you're saying that this is a developed system, and this is a descriptor for how the West works, or how different nations work. You're using this as a descriptor for the systems, and the systems are what creates a patriarchal system. Can at the top of this patriarchal system exist all female leaders? Theoretically.
I guess if the women were upholding patriarchal standards, then yes.
So why wouldn't that be a matriarchy then?
I guess it depends on the definition that you're using,
Right, that's
or
what I'm
the,
using here.
the
So
connotations.
it seems to me that patriarchy has no meaning if you're removing men from being at the top of the patriarchate, right? Just like matriarchy. Could you imagine how foolish it would sound if I said, oh, there was this great matriarchy with a king and princes and everything that wasn't matriarchal, right? So this is why I'm trying to get kind of your definition for these systems.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I think what I'm saying that's not getting across the way that I want it to be is that there's different kind of in between the lines depending on what situation you're talking about, matriarchies
So
and
here's a
patriarchies.
clarifying question for you. I'm going to simplify it. He asked you if it could still be a patriarchy if there's women at the top managing it, and you said if they're upholding patriarchal structures, it could still be a patriarchy. What do you mean by that? What are those patriarchal structures that those women at the top would theoretically be upholding?
Capitalism would be a good example.
Women benefit from capitalism. You benefit from it.
Anybody
How is
can.
that?
There's benefits and negatives.
Wait, so are you
to
against capitalism?
Theoretically, yes. I think that there are
But
ways
in
that
practice,
it could become better.
In practice, you do OnlyFans, so
I
theoretically,
have
you're not
to
against
be able
it.
to live. I have to be able to live.
So
know?
you're taking advantage of capitalism
Yes,
in order
I
to
am.
live. Okay. Are you more in favor of like socialism or communism?
Yeah, what system? If
think-
you don't like capitalism, what system would you prefer to see?
Yeah. What's matriarchal?
Capitalism is when you're
Stop.
working
Hold on.
under.
This is a question for her.
So, I guess by definition, it sounds very radical of me, and I do consider myself to be a radical feminist. But I guess communism, the very simplistic definition that I have of communism, the utopian society that I envision would be a communist society, and that is because we would have like a trade and barter system. So I could provide, what I'm good at providing, what I enjoy to provide. You could provide to our shared society.
A stateless
what you enjoy.
society.
Yes.
Yeah,
and
so-
I think that it would be very complicated to go from where we are right now.
So I can end this
to
argument
that.
very quickly for you.
We're not arguing about it. I'm just stating
Well,
my
no,
opinion.
I can actually change your mind about this. Hang on, I can change your entire mind about this. I promise.
Okay.
Inside of your stateless society, you would have to have an enforcement arm, like police officers or something like this, to deal with criminals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you? How could you enforce a hierarchy inside of your society without appealing to a hierarchy to do it?
Why would I need a hierarchy?
Because a stateless society is one without a hierarchy. We would agree that that's true. So if that is true, how could you enforce the norms of a stateless society without appealing to a hierarchy to do so?
So the norms that would be in my stateless society, I don't know how big this, would be, but we're talking about a hypothetical, I guess. So in my stateless society, the norms would be to commit ethical decisions. There
Sure.
would be a
What if
board
somebody
of the
violates
community.
those?
Yeah. Then what?
Then then you have enforcement to take care of that, right?
Because people will inevitably violate.
Yeah,
So
I've had this conversation.
So if
before. I
people
actually really
will
like it.
violate the norms of that society and you have to appeal to enforcement, that is a hierarchy.
Grid One Motorsports donated $200. Patriarchy values women, protect them and cherish them. The idea that it preys on women is absolutely trash intellectualism. Feminism has failed you. How may the
Grid
patriarchy
One.
help you today?
Bingo.
Is that a-
Andrew, did you want to continue on with your point
Yeah,
about?
if you don't mind.
Oh, of course,
So-
go ahead,
So I'm
go
just
ahead.
saying, think about the absurdity here. Inside of a stateless society, there can be no hierarchy. If you have a hierarchy, you have a state. How do you enforce the norms of your stateless society without appealing to a hierarchy?
It would be I guess it would be somewhat of a hierarchy. There's two levels: those who commit ethical decisions and those who do not commit ethical decisions. And what's decided to be ethical is decided upon by the community.
Sure.
And then in my mind, the only things that can really come up to me that would require severe punishment or what was the word that you were using?
Enforcement.
Enforcement, yes, would be murder and essay.
No, there's tons of
what
other
about
things.
theft?
Theft, all kinds of things.
I don't, in a society when there's not a sense of scarcity, I don't think that theft would be a problem.
I mean,
unless there's somebody that's a kleptomaniac. That would
Let's
be like
take
the
all
only
those off then.
situation.
Just violence itself, violent crime, stuff like that. If you're going to have violent crimes inside of a society, you're going to have enforcers, big, strong enforcers to go take care of any violent criminals who exist, right? Like that's going to
Yes.
be necessary.
Wait,
right?
do you in your society that you envision, do you reject the idea that there would be a criminal element? You think it would be impossible for criminality to materialize?
Not necessarily. I don't think it would be necessarily impossible, but then again, I haven't seen a case study where a society lives like this, to
But
see
the
whether
human-
or not it would,
Why do you think it would be possible then?
for there to be a society without crime
No,
or violence.
this
Okay.
stateless society that you're talking about, where nobody's stealing from one another, there's abundance everywhere, there's no scarcity, everybody's conforming to the same social norms, there's no hierarchy. I mean, you're describing what you call communism, but this is not. This is
Very loose-
communism has
loosely.
never played out like this.
Yeah.
You've had like small societies that have been communes where people have shared the same social values and they get along relatively well. But like, can you name a single time in history when what you're describing has ever happened at scale?
No, that's why I said that this was like a utopic type. This is where my values lie. And I do think that it would be very difficult for a society like the one that we have modernly to transition to this type of utopian
But
society
if
that I'm
it's
describing.
stateless, that would be absent hierarchy. Even inside of what you're describing is not stateless because you say that there is a value group who assesses what is moral and is immoral and is ethical and not ethical. That in and of itself is going to be a hierarchy and thus not stateless.
I didn't use the word stateless. I didn't bring it up in like,
Well,
oh,
that-
some
you just
stateless
agreed to
society.
But that is
I mean,
communism,
I
right?
don't-
Communism is a stateless society. That is what is postulated by communism, is it not?
I use the word communism very loosely. It's commune, so we're living in a community, and ism.
Wait, so are you saying in this utopian society that you desire to live in, what would be the population of said society? Because currently in the U.S., the population's over, what, 300 million?
330
Yeah.
million.
Yeah.
right
Okay.
now.
So are you talking like 200 people?
Something like that would be cool. I mean, I don't know how, because,
Okay.
like I said, I haven't seen a case study, right? So I don't know how many.
So, okay,
we didn't
you
have
have
modes
your
of
society of
transport, for
200
example.
people. What do we do with the other 330 million people just in the United States? Do they
have their
also?
own society that have different ethical systems?
Ken,
And
what,
then-
what was your name
Okay.
again?
Caitlin.
Caitlin.
Yeah.
I say this with all due respect. I think this utopia that you're describing is fundamentally completely incompatible with human nature and will never exist at scale. Because, and I don't say this to insult you, but because human beings naturally organize themselves into hierarchies.
Do you have evidence of this that you could show me?
All of human
Every
history.
single-
When you walked
All of
into
human
this
history.
room, when you walked into this room to set up the podcast, there was a guy who was in charge, and he told you to go over there and fill out this form.
Yes.
And then he told you where you're going to sit, and he
Yes.
told you which mic you're going to speak into, and he told you everything. The very second we walked into this room, all of us together, the entire room was organized quickly by hierarchy in a hierarchical structure, and everybody was told exactly what their role was.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes
Any time human beings organize in a group at all, there's always going to be leadership that emerges, but there's going to be somebody that's more confident, bolder,
Yes.
able to articulate themselves more clearly. They're going to rise in the hierarchy, particularly if they exercise good leadership abilities. There's going to be people that are less competent. People also temperamentally are wired in different ways. Some people are going to be more wired to serve others. Others are going to be more wired to lead. And hierarchies are just built into nature all around us.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily agree or disagree. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not really super. So by hierarchy, for me, I guess I totally understand what you guys are saying. My visualization of it within this utopia is very much less intense than what we have now, where there's like, you know, the president that rules over everything, and all these corporations and lobbyists and whatever organizations subsidize government
So
decisions.
you like small government?
I don't mind
yeah,
small
go for it.
government.
Can I just ask a question
Yeah, go
really
for
quick? You guys will ask for evidence when, like, the opposing argument speaks, but we can't ask for evidence, and you guys
No, you
show
absolutely
us.
can. You,
Like,
you
would
can.
you would show us? Because, like,
Are you
you're
asking about
What
the
are you asking
evidence
for?
she asked for
No, just
in terms of
in
hierarchy?
general. I
no,
just
you can ask us for
noticed.
evidence.
But will you show us evidence if we have
Well, she
opposing?
did. She asked for evidence of a
Because
hierarchy,
if we
and I gave her
can't
a logical
we can't take out our
demonstration of
phones
one.
and just show you
No, but,
empirical
but
evidence
what we
of
can
things.
do is just have a conversation where I can reference
Yeah.
things that have happened in history, and you can reference things that have happened in history, and
Yes, I just
you guys may be lying about it. You may be telling the truth. We won't know because we're not going to sit here and take out our phones and look it
we
up.
won't know either if your evidence is
Okay,
true.
well, that's a bit meta. It's a bit
Modesty
meta.
It is,
Taken
but
donated
it's like I don't
$200.
like the. Do you have evidence
Imagine
of that?
Brad's
Hold on.
shirt and
Argument.
using brain at same time. Impossible.
Oh.
Communism only works when everyone perfect. Nobody is perfect, Irony lies. Imagine pitching communism and not knowing what it is. Chase W.
I need to get to one more
I wasn't
chat.
the one who made the communism
she wasn't
argument.
talking about communism that
I don't.
time.
I'm not speaking on communism as a separate question.
Sure, that's fine. Hold on.
Is it-
Hold on, wait. Let me read this. Looking forward to hearing from the three next to Brian. Should be a good convo. Chase, as always, thank you for being a role model for young men and progressing the good news of Jesus Christ. # Christ is Lord. Brady, hey, thank you very much. Sorry it took us a
Amen.
little while to get to it.
Thank you, Brady.
I had just one thing related to, I think, Andrew's questions here. Did we fully... well, I'll let... Okay, hold
Raven
on. I'll let this
DT
one come in.
donated
and then
$200. There was a Survivor show where they put all men on one
Oh, yeah,
island
yeah,
and
yeah.
all women
That
on
was
another.
hilarious.
Is that
In
Naked
a
and
couple of
Afraid?
days,
Yeah.
the women
No.
were cold
It was
and
the other one.
hungry, whereas the men had fire, food, and it was due to hierarchy.
That is
Yeah,
hilarious.
it was hilarious. That whole thing was hilarious.
That's so funny.
I've seen it. Yeah. Did we get to fully address? Did you have an answer when it came to the criminality component of your
I have a question
utopian
about that.
society? Do you have a solution?
I don't think it would be really a solution. I think it would depend on where the society starts. If we were to be able to fully and gently deconstruct capitalism in the way that it exists today, then maybe we could heal social wounds, for lack of better terms.
Don't you think this is
to-
pretty
Where-
lofty?
Very
lofty.
delusional.
Where are you learning this stuff? Who are you consuming these ideas from? Out of curiosity.
I've just done a lot of
Marx.
analysis of what's right and what's
But
wrong.
you're obviously like listening to influential people from maybe throughout history, reading books, YouTube, podcast.
I just have one question.
Okay.
That's it, just one. Can you name 2 communist thought leaders?
I said, okay. That's totally fair and a totally valid question.
Can you
I
name
mean,
2 communist
Karl
thought
Marx
leaders?
is like the best that I could give you honestly and fairly. And I can admit that, and I'm very okay with that.
Why in
But
the world
I
would you
used-
espouse an
You also
ideology
probably
if you
have-
don't even know the
I
names of
didn't
the thought leaders who espouse it?
spout an ideology? You said, did you guys, or do I believe in socialism, communism, whatever? I said communism just like to loosely use the term to describe
Okay, can you name
what I
2
have.
socialist thought leaders?
I didn't say anything about me being a socialist.
I